Hello, friends. A very warm welcome to yet another episode of the Pioneers of the Smart World with Lipika Sud. Our guest today is Sunita Kohli. Sunita Kohli is a globally recognized national award-winning interior designer, furniture manufacturer, and architectural conservationist since 1971. Her professional portfolio includes several significant public and heritage buildings, hotels, and hotel boats, forts, palaces, libraries, museums, and select residences in India, Egypt, Pakistan, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka. She is the president of K2 India, an award-winning architectural and design firm which she co-founded with her daughter, architect Lipika Kohli. Sunita Kohli is a former chairperson of the School of Planning and Architecture in Bhopal and has lectured and presented papers at several universities in the UK, the USA, and Southeast Asia. She has been a member of the Advisory Council of the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C., and in 2003 founded a similar but a museum without walls in India. She is the chairperson of the Board of Trustees of Save a Mother, an NGO conceived and run by Dr. Shiban Ganju, which is deeply involved in the reduction of female mortality rates in 1,500 villages across India. In 1992, Sunita Kohli was conferred the Padma Shri for contribution to national life in the field of interior design by the President of India in New Delhi. And she was also presented the Mahila Shiromani Award by Mother Teresa, now St. Teresa in Kolkata. A very warm welcome to you, Sunita.
Thank you.
You grew up in India and spent a large part of your life in Lucknow. You have educated parents who were actually refugees from Lahore. You yourself have got excellent education with a master's in English literature. How did interior design happen? What were your early influences that led you to taking up interior design as a profession?
Well, the years that I was growing up in Lucknow, I was born in Lahore, and my parents very shortly after that had to move, and they chose to move to Lahore, to Lucknow, which is a city which, according to my father, the most closely approximated the culture and the language and the physical beauty of Lahore. So Lucknow is where we grew up and what I call home. And my early influences, because of my father and my parents actually, firstly was reading. There's always a great emphasis on reading in the house. And so we are all readers and we all grew up reading. And then, my father was very keen that we be good travelers. So he would take us to different parts of India, and from there grew really my love of traveling within this country, much as one has traveled abroad to various other places. And then thirdly, I think, that Lucknow is a place which was kind of laid back, and every afternoon there would be a music teacher coming. So we all grew up learning classical music. And in fact, I have a Visharad in it, which I did alongside my master's degree in literature. So, and then going to who today call themselves antique dealers, but actually were kabadiwalas. So, but there were, in those days, in the late 50s, early 60s, there was beautiful stuff that was available. I think all that really influenced the fact that later on in life, I became an interior designer. But of course, I never knew of interior design as a profession. It never existed in our times. I'd never heard of it. So mine is an unplanned profession. I just kind of went into it. So it was really the
first. Yes. So, but you were conferred the Padma Shri for your contribution to national life in the field of interior design and architectural conservation. I mean, we all know about your restoration work at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Prime Minister's office, and so many other such prestigious projects you have done. You've even have a whole spectrum of projects in so many different countries, Egypt, Bhutan, Sri Lanka. How have you managed all that?
I think I used my university discipline of research in my interior design. But of course, that presumes the fact that that hunar has to recognize you, and you have to recognize the hunar within you, because without that nothing can happen in this particular field, or in fact in any field of the arts. So I think what really happened was that I did my first small project for the Oberois, which was a hotel in Khajuraho. I'm speaking of 1975. And because that was very well received, that led to another project and another project and another project. I mean, in one's field, as you very well know, Lipika, you're in a similar field, that you're only as good as your last project. I mean, nobody's going to give you work because they like you, they like your face. Sorry, it's, it costs too much money. Totally. If you can deliver, you will get the project. So I went from project to project. And of course, a time came when I was working simultaneously on several projects belonging to different cultures. And that I think I found very challenging, but extremely enjoyable. I like being challenged and I like doing research.
And is that research thing coming from your education of English literature or the kind of family atmosphere that you grew up in?
I think it's a combination of both.
Okay, great. Sunita, I received your cookbook, the Lucknow cookbook. And in the introduction, there's a very interesting thing that you mentioned about how you grew up with your parents with a certain value system. Tell us a little more about that.
Firstly, my parents have always been deeply secular. And these are the sort of belief systems and value systems that they instilled in each one of us. And then, moreover, growing up in a city like Lucknow, where it really truly endorses its Ganga Jamni Tehzeeb, which means the easy acceptance of each other's beliefs. That also has stayed with me for the rest of my life, because I grew up in what is predominantly a Muslim city, because the elite of Lucknow were always Muslims. And I come from a Hindu family, and I grew up in a Roman Catholic convent. So we just embraced all of it, apart from, of course, the Sikh, Isai, Jains, Parsis that Lucknow had, because Lucknow always embraced many cultures. I mean, therein lies the greatness of that city. Okay. So I think these value systems, so deeply embedded through all the years that one was growing up in this really fabulous city, which has fashioned me today. Not only to Lucknow do I give the credit for the fact that I took to interior design, but also to what it has, the values it has instilled in me.
Beautiful. So secularism is what has come from you, and it's going back into your childhood, which has shaped you for the person that you are today.
Yes.
Beautiful. Sunita, has affected different people in different ways. Work from home has now become a normal thing. You are at home. Looks like you're in a beautiful space where you're enjoying nature. How has the really affected you and your family? And what is it like to be sitting in this beautiful atmosphere that I can see as your background right now?
See, we are amongst the privileged few, and I'm very, very conscious of that. Particularly last year, while sitting in our comfortable homes, one saw all these thousands of migrant workers. We won't go into that because that is a very tragic story which has taken place in our country. So it has affected me deeply and emotionally, and the fact that we are a country of haves and have-nots. And I really feel that the haves have to support the have-nots. Otherwise, one's life is not worth living.
Wonderful. And these mountains that right now I can't see, which are covered in the fog mist. And the mist. What is it all about?
These are the Aravallis, and they're the oldest rock formations on the planet. And these are the only things that you can see from outer space when you see planet Earth. are the Havells. And and I'm delighted that we have this. It's a country cottage. It's not a farm, because, I don't like the connotation of farmhouse culture. So this is a cottage. We are privileged that it's just outside Delhi. So there's a commute between here and when we go back to our home, which is in central Delhi. Rocks I collect also, because from archaeology, I just don't keep collecting rocks. See, every rock, you have to know, is at least 30,000 years old to 300 million years old. So, in this very garden, I have petrified rock, which I use as tables, which are 200 million years old. That's how the wood got petrified into rock. It took that long a period of time. So, and I like to collect rocks from archaeological sites. And of course, it's forbidden. So my children always tell me, "Mother, don't look down." I said, look, but even to pick up one rock and to have it with me, maybe in a thal or in a urli full of other rocks, to me is very mnemonic. Just that one rock makes me recollect a whole trip, maybe to Cambodia, maybe to Bhutan, maybe to Egypt, maybe to Greece, wherever.
So you have a huge collection. Wow.
Not huge, but a significant collection of what is meaningful to me.
Wonderful. So that's another angle to your personality. It's so amazing, Sunita. You're a talented interior designer. You're a prolific writer. You've written essays. You've authored books, even written a book on Lucknowi cuisine. Your master's in English, Visharad, as you just mentioned, in Hindustan classical music. At the same time, you're a mother, a grandmother, a sister, a wife, so many roles. How do you manage to play them all and also well?
I don't know about well or otherwise, frankly. But yes, as women, and here I speak in general, women play these multiplicity of roles. They can be wives, lovers, mothers, grandmothers. I certainly have 3 children and I have 3 grandchildren. I'm pretty antiquated. The older 2 are in college and one is going to finish soon and one has just gone into university. So but I'm not a multitasker. For instance, if I am with my grandchildren, or if I'm reading, or if I'm watching a film, I'm fully concentrated into that. And I'm not trying to do multiple things at the same time. So, I hurrah to all the multitaskers, but I'm not one of them.
Maybe that's your secret to success, because you're probably just so focused on what you're doing that you're doing it extremely well and, giving it your 100%. So maybe that's a point that all professionals, I think, need to keep in mind and, give in their best instead of trying to do too many things at the same time and not being able to do justice to everything. So maybe multitasking may not necessarily be the good trait as a lot of people might think.
Success is such a relative word. And we each work in the ways that we feel most comfortable with. So I can only express to you what is my way.
So, Sunita, as we were discussing, you have worked in so many different countries and amazing projects with designing hotels on boats. And tell me, working in India itself is quite a challenge, especially as a woman in a male-dominated industry. Add to it your experiences in, different parts of the world. What has been some challenges that you would have thought as a woman you would have faced in the design industry per se?
I have to say that in different echelons of society, and the more proficient you are in your work, then a lot of, and particularly if you're self-employed, so that means also self-driven. You're like an entrepreneur. After all, design is also a business, as you very well know. So the discrepancies between, if you're self-employed, between men and women start to fall away. Yes, men will always get maybe the first preference when they are doing, when in today's world, when there's a competition or something, and then maybe a woman will come second into that. But I didn't face any of it. I have to be very frank. I was amongst the first, if not the first, to be designing hotels internationally. And of course, it came as a cultural shock. The first one was in Egypt, and it was in El Arish, and it was in the late 70s. And El Arish is a resort town on the north coast of the Sinai Peninsula on the Mediterranean Sea. And so when Mr. Oberoi had invited me, they run these hotels. So this lot of hotels that they had in Egypt all belong to a company called EGOT, which is a government-owned company. So when I walked into the conference room, and that time my hair was very, very long and below my hips and in a sari, which I always wore whether traveling to work. So they kind of, they were all taken aback. They said, and then they later on told me, the chief project manager, he said, we were wondering who has Mr. Oberoi now appointed, and they said, will she be able to work? But of course, once I started working, they understood that I understood my work.
Fabulous. And you have shown it time and time again with the successful projects that you have done over and over again. Tell me about this fascination about sarees, Sunita. I have always seen you in these gorgeous handloom sarees and also khadi. This entire with, khadi. What is this love? And tell me more about it.
I love Indian textiles, period. I love them, and I only like to wear handwoven fabric. Today, as you can see, I'm wearing a kurta, but that's also handwoven silk. And because I'm in the country and I didn't know we were going to have this lovely interview, otherwise I would have carried a sari. Or actually, I knew about it. Mm-hmm. But the way we came away from Delhi because of the third wave and what is happening, so I didn't think far enough ahead कि अब साड़ी भी ले जानी चाहिए क्योंकि लिपिका के साथ इंटरव्यू है. But I love wearing sarees that are made by weavers, many of them by master weavers, and to me it doesn't matter किसी और को पहचान है कि नहीं, but another sari lover will know what I'm wearing.
Absolutely. I adore each and every garment that you have always worn, and it has stayed in my head in the way you carry it. My goodness, I can tell you a lot of people follow you on this, Sunita. But tell me something. Why is the younger lot, the designers and even the creative people, are not seen in these garments, particularly the sari? What is the message for you, from you for them? And if they don't wear it, is it not going to die in some way?
I'm very fortunate in one thing. I have a granddaughter who's 22. Okay. And she loves wearing sarees.
That's so
I know. But now you see, this is a house influence. Mm-hmm. Kohelika, when she's my daughter, who's an architect, if she's out, she prefers to wear a sari more than anything else.
Okay.
And of course, otherwise they wear jeans and whatever else young people wear. And but I wish there wasn't just this craziness about wearing frocks. When we have such a garment, and believe me, it is so comfortable. All my life, till I had an accident, all my life I have worn a sari, whether it's sitting at home, it's traveling, it's at work sites, anything. It's always been a sari. It's comfortable, it's cool in the summer, warm in the winter. It's elegant to look at.
Absolutely.
It never goes out of fashion if it's a classic sari, even if it's a classic handwoven sari which is in cotton, which costs 500 rupees or 700 rupees. Sometimes when people compliment me on a sari and I say, yes, I bought it in Coimbatore, I bought it here, I bought it there, and it was 600, 700 rupees. They said, you must be joking. Actually, I'm not. And
So you are celebrating saris every day, every moment. Celebrating Indianness.
Now they emphasize these things. My good friends, my close friends are all sari wearers. And we and one of the reasons why we all great friends is because we all love Indian textiles.
Okay, wonderful.
So in our youth, you didn't have to prove you were Indian. You're Indian. Period.
Right, absolutely.
You didn't have to prove that you're a sari wearer. You just took it for granted that you wore a sari. We wore a sari to college.
Right,
all of us.
Right, absolutely. So, I mean, it was the done thing, and nobody really even thought about it. You just mentioned about a terrible accident that you had, perhaps in the year 1998, when you fell down and had a cervical fracture. You were laid up in bed for several months. How did you manage? Because you're a person who's running around doing projects, not just in India, going abroad. How has that incident impacted you in your life?
Well, I had cervical fractures, and yes, I was in hospital for many months, and then many months of what they call being rehabilitated into walking. But what it taught me was that, firstly, to be grateful to God that I should have been paralyzed the neck down, and I wasn't. So I was given a second lease of life, to survive. And then one immediately wanted to prioritize one's life. Like one of the things I then decided that for 30 years I'd been, I'd go abroad 10 times a year, whether for 2 days, 3 days on work, running around. I thought, now this I need to stop, for almost 30 years, I need to stop, and I'll concentrate on the things that really that interest me immensely. So one of the things I did was that it still took a year and a half before I was all right. And my daughter Kohilika, who's an architect, she was studying in Rome because they have a program to go abroad to their own Pratt studios. And she said, why don't you come? So I spent the most amazing 7 weeks in Rome, in Italy altogether, traveling with her co-students and her professors. Mm-hmm. Those become experiences that are of such deep knowledge. Mm-hmm. And had I not broken my neck, I could never have thought of taking this sort of time off.
Okay. So this was
actually... I also went back to literature.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So all the silver lining, all the things that you wanted to do and perhaps either were not able to do or, didn't prioritize it, you ended up doing.
Well, there was such a constraint of time, because if you're working, I was running 2 businesses. I'm a furniture manufacturer since 71, and a design business, plus a husband, plus 3 children. So, there is very little personal time that one has. And so I thought now I would indulge myself in what really I really wanted to do.
Wonderful, fabulous. So that's a lot of courage from, being totally laid up, getting a new release of life, and then bouncing back and doing all the beautiful things that you've always wanted to do and more. You have done so much. I mean, with writing books and, authoring so many things. So now coming back to a little bit about technology, Sunita, designing on the drafting board with paper, pen, scale was where we all started. I mean, you started many, many more years before I did too. And then life changed. We have computer-aided design, and then, which we have, of course, embraced very well in our offices. But today, technology is also coming to our homes. And, particularly I've seen K2 India, your company, also does very beautiful boutique homes, contemporary homes. So how has smart homes become a priority, and what is your experience of doing these smart homes today?
I have to say that I have a very contemporary mindset. Mm-hmm. And, and I think everybody evolves, who's reasonably intelligent, and I think I fall into that category. But in K2 India, I think, only advocate smart homes, because that is the future. So, and we are, I think, very proficient at doing it in terms of, what we do with security systems, what we do with music, what we do with automation of lighting and everything. And even if a client doesn't want to spend, because it can be a very expensive exercise also, wants to spend part of the money later, but particularly Kohelika, my daughter, she future wires all these projects so that you don't ever have to be breaking walls, etc. again. And that is where I think the synergy of working with her comes from, because she's so far thinking in her profession. But Lipika, tell me, you're also in the same profession that I am, and that you've been working for, I think, almost 3 decades or so, out of which I'm sure I've known you for 2 decades.
Absolutely.
And so how has it been for you working and designing contemporary and smart homes? Because technology is everywhere. It's what one takes out of it.
Absolutely.
That defines one studio practice from another.
Absolutely. Actually, interestingly, it's not just the young people who are wanting, homes which are smart, with technology helping them with their everyday living, be it lighting, be it air conditioning, or any of the things. I see today, and maybe even more during the people are going in for more renovations in their homes because they're spending more time in their homes. Work from home has become a norm. So, people wanting to convert some part of their home as home offices. So more of technology has been embraced. So even in my projects, very much like you explained about how your projects go, either wiring it up from the very beginning, or even retrofitting some of them by changing, the switches, which, with these, easy to install modules that are available, or even mood lighting, blinds, fans, voice control. Smart plugs also have become a very interesting, product that people are looking at, even as a small gadget. So yes, it's been a great journey.
I know too. I fully endorse what you're saying. I mean, last year, in the midst of but there was a pause before the second wave started. We had extensive renovation. I mean, proper renovation and done in our home, which is in Golf Links, and it was built, I think, in 1954, 53 or something. So in that, Kohelika told me that, we are going to make it into a smart home. And I was very frightened of using it myself. I'm very good at advocating it for other people because, most of them are much younger clients.
Yes.
But I thought, ab is umar mein kya, a smart home. But she said, look, try it. And she has made the apartment into a smart apartment. And now that I'm so used to it, I wondered how I lived before.
Okay,
without this automation.
It's like the story of the mobile phones. When we started life, there were no mobile phones. Today, we can't think about it. I mean, look at technology. You and I are talking thanks to technology and actually sharing these stories with the world. So, wow, hats off to technology, really. So, tell me, you embrace technology so beautifully well, to the point that I believe you've also recently done an international jury of a documentary films on sustainability, which has been done virtually by you.
Yes, that was quite an experience. I'm delighted that this TVE Global Sustainability Documentary Films, that they're in their 10th year, and the award-winning films got shown at BAFTA, and of course, which we couldn't attend this year, but since they've asked me to be on the jury again for next year. And it's amazing, but everything today, like how you judge a film, there are systems that technology has built into it. And if somebody can explain it just once properly, or maybe even twice, it's fine. Which does not include my children or my grandchildren. वो एक बारी समझा देते हैं, and then you say कि, excuse me, I didn't understand, can you repeat it? But they say, we've told you once, you should have got it. I mean,
and figure it out yourself.
I know.
That sounds familiar.
So, any case. So that was quite an experience, because one saw extraordinary films on sustainability, some which were 1 minute and some which were 4 minutes, and one of them which won an award, which was 20 minutes, was what in this one particular village, these computer savvy 3 people did for how they mobilized rations, how they mobilized medicines, how they mobilized medical help, and people who couldn't read or write. They made them technologically savvy. It's an absolutely beautiful film, and I hope Doordarshan or somebody will pick it up and show it over and over again. This is what technology can do. After all, technology has many, many benefits.
We look forward to having an opportunity of seeing this. We have a lot of creative people in the audience today, young and old, and who have always been inspired by you and your work over the years. Just some 3 small mantras, what we can keep in mind to stay focused on the path of chasing one's passion. Sunita, what would you say?
See, firstly, Lipika, I would never presume to advise anybody, because everybody finds their own path. So I can only say what worked for me. What worked for me was that design in a very circuitous way came to me quite early on in life. And then I just kind of went into it without really thinking, I'm an interior designer, I'm a furniture manufacturer, which actually that came first. But in all of this, I can say is that I worked very hard. And because it grew into a passion, and I'm kind of passionately research-based, I have intellectual curiosity about many things that are totally unrelated to design, and then one thing leads to another, and that to another to another. So I would say there is no substitute for hard work. There is no substitute for knowledge, whichever way you want to acquire it. After all, today we have Google University. Even I consult it constantly.
Wonderful.
And that I think one must remain sincere, and not expect that, like instant coffee, which you had mentioned, that you can have instant success. It'll come.
Absolutely.
It'll come. If you're sincere enough, it will come. I mean,
how beautifully put. Sincerity, I think, is number one. I would think in that way. Of course, the intellectual curiosity, which is actually your forte, I think, research, learn more and more, and that adds so much value to a project. To my mind, I think whatever I have seen about your work, it's all about getting into the depth of the project and bringing out the best and, adding value to it. And of course, the hard work that goes without saying that you just mentioned. I think just these beautiful small tips can really keep one focused in whatever one is doing and not expect, as you rightly said, instant success or instant, failures happen because maybe some of these points are missing in the work that people are doing. And one can really keep that in mind. Tell me, Sunita, we were talking about numbers of years. Looks like you've given almost 50 years to this profession. I mean, frankly, I think it is said age is a number, but in your case, you've proven it time and time again. You've been in.
Listen, I'm very ancient. I've worked.
Well, it doesn't look it because, in spite of all the things that you have achieved, after this conversation, it seems like there's so much more that is probably coming. So 2 things I want to understand from you. Where does this energy, this enthusiasm comes from? That's one. And what are we expecting next from you?
I always quote my husband because he's always accusing me of an excess of enthusiasm. And I've always said that. And I always then quote back to him what Bertrand Russell said, that enthusiasm is the gift of youth. So that keeps him quiet, for a bit. But that was said to me many, many years ago. He said many other things. But, I have a personality, and even my grandchildren say, Nanima, now you're getting carried away. I just get carried away in my own enthusiasm,
Wow.
And ek cheez pe lag jao, like, I like to, for instance, I like to collect antique and vintage cutlery.
Okay.
And,
Wow.
because, each spoon, whether it's a jam spoon, it's a mustard spoon, it's a fish slice, whatever it is, has a story to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact that if that implement could speak, it's come from other homes and it has seen other things, And in any case, it's a way of life. This is very much a strong influence of my father, but I took it as my children, just last night, I was showing them the most exquisite hallmark silver crema that I brought here to use. And I said that this is an influence from, I was telling Kohelika, my daughter, from your grandfather. But I then took it to another level, of always going to flea markets, going to Marché aux Puces, whether it's in Alexandria or in Paris or something. And because I like everyday art as far as Indian things are concerned, because I think that really there is no other country like ours, which made an everyday object into a high form of art, whether it was for secular purposes or whether it was for sacred purposes. I mean, you take anything, you even take a kaddu kach, and you take a kaddu kach, in front of it might be the head of a tortoise.
Right.
Because when it was made, it is an avatar of Vishnu, So there are all these inbuilt things that are so generational, that come from hundreds of years. I mean, as Charles Ames, the great designer, said, the most perfect object in the world is a lota.
Okay.
And one man didn't design it.
Mm-hmm.
It took generations of people to design it. And of course, we've got such a variety of lotas in our country. I mean, so that in itself, I mean, you take any object, you take any cooking vessel, you take a pot, you take karchis, you take diyas that you light. I mean, look at the variety of diyas that we've got from all over India. I mean, they tell their own story. So we are a country, we are so fortunate that we are full of stories, because
Absolutely.
we are really an ancient civilization.
So what's next, Sunita? What are we expecting from you? A book on all this, or is it something else? On another project? I'm sure there are lots, but what is the immediate new thing that you think you would like to?
Well, the immediate one thing is that, like, as of day before yesterday, I should have handed in one manuscript. So, which I will do so now. This is another small book like the Lucknow cookbook, and it's the India cookbook and the full title is the India cookbook from the table of my friends. So, So that is happening. Then I'm doing a very big book on heritage, and I'm doing a very big book on design, and I'm doing a book with, my grandchildren have already done the 63 illustrations, which they did like 10 years ago. And then it got stuck with their grandmother because I couldn't complete the text. So now that book is so I've got about 4 or 5 books which I'm working on. And those need to be completed, and a couple of projects and things. So things go side by side. And
Wonderful. So this conversation will not be complete till I ask you about your experience with the Museum of Women in the Arts, and of course also the Museum Without Walls. Tell us a little about that.
This must have been, I think, 2002. That the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. I used to go to the States quite a lot. I used to get invited every lecture that I got invited to. And I'm kind of considered one of the experts on the works of Sir Edwin Lutyens and the planning of New Delhi. So wherever I was invited to, I would accept. On one of those visits, I was invited to meet with a very amazing woman who actually founded this museum. And then she asked me, she said, we've been looking for 2 years, and various Indian women were, I should really feel very complimented that she said various Indian women were suggesting, and she said, wait, I think the right person will come along. And then she just asked me to be on the National Advisory Board. So that started my involvement with the museum there. And then we thought we'd do an independent museum here, because you couldn't be an adjunct of that museum because India is such a large country. But the best way, of course, a wonderful board and all that. But the best way of doing it was to do it as a museum without walls. I mean, that phrase is not mine. It's the phrase of the French, the one-time French Minister of Culture, André Malraux. He said that, and so if I had, supposing a dance performance here where we are, supposing we had chow dancers dancing here or something, as a museum event. So for the duration of that, this space would become museum space. Okay. So for instance, in our courtyard, in Golf Links, I've had many events that have taken place there. They're all museum events. Okay. But I have to say that it's been, so much happened in between and everything, that it's been kind of inactive for a while, but I'm very much hoping to revive it again.
Absolutely. And we are all looking forward to it. Thank you, Sunita, for this amazing conversation. Every time I've had a conversation with you in the past also, it's been so enriching. And this one too, my God, so many more things to learn. You're
very, very kind, Lipika. And thank you actually for inviting me. I'm delighted to have been invited by you.
I'm so happy too, Sunita, because like me, hundreds of other creative minds across the globe get inspired by all that you have done in the past and the way you speak about so many multidisciplinary things. It just amazes me how you have so much passion for so many different creative things, each one which you manage to do so beautifully well.
That's kind of you to say so. I mean, like you. That's for others to judge what I do. But at the end of the day, one has to be content within oneself and feel fulfilled within oneself. That may not be a successful way of taking life, but that's what I think.
But if you're fulfilled, I guess you're happy. And if you're happy, that's what life is all about. So looking forward to many more such wonderful occasions.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Lipika. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye. That was an amazing conversation with Padma Shri Sunita Kohli. This program is not over yet. Here is an interesting segment for all of you to win fabulous prizes, only if you can answer the questions after seeing the short clip by Havells on smart homes. Do fill up the form with these 3 simple questions and send it across.
John is always cool-headed, except when the remotes are hiding under the sofa. AC, TV, set-top box. He loses the count as there are so many remotes. He keeps pointing in all directions. Wish there was one remote to control everything. Here comes the Smart IR Remote, the only solution which lets you control all the devices in your home. Simply connect with Wi-Fi. Now, using Havells DigiTap app, controlling your appliances is so easy. Mount it on walls or put it on the table. Automate with voice commands using a voice controller. John is now super slick. Controls everything with just a mobile phone click. So now, take the wise call. Get the Smart IR Remote to rule them all.
A big thank you to all of you. You have been a splendid audience. This program is possible thanks to Havells, who have created this platform to capture and celebrate the lives of pioneers of the smart world in which we live. Till next time, for yet another episode on Pioneers of the Smart World with Lipika Sud, goodbye and love you all.